Thank you. Your Excellency, President Paul Kagame, the Deputy Prime Ministers, Ministers, the President of ECOSOC, our AU representative, our able Executive Secretary of ECA, Dr. Vera Songwe, the Chair of the 7th session. I was just saying to Mr. President that with him on the podium amongst 3 women alone, one might say that he's an endangered species, but he isn't. I'm going to go to the piece where it says, "Blessed is he amongst women." So, Mr. President, you're blessed. Excellencies, colleagues, especially the resident coordinators of the United Nations who gather here in Kigali from all over the continent, and I'd like to make a special welcome to them because they're here to hear and share and to further support the continent of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, really pleased to be with you today for the opening of the African Regional Forum on Sustainable Development, and I want to thank President Kagame, the government and the people for such a warm welcome, and what better a place to get back in person on an issue that is so important to the continent than here in Kigali, when so many agreements have been reached and leadership has been shown on the continent and in the world, the latest of which has metamorphosized into an outstanding agreement resolution on plastics. Excellencies, we are meeting at a crucial time when our ability to achieve the goals that we set for ourselves in 2015 for the 2030 Agenda and Agenda 2063 does hang in the balance. The COVID-19 pandemic has wrought havoc on our societies and economies. It's also been a big disappointment in terms of solidarity to the continent of Africa. We've seen hunger and poverty increasing as a result for the first time in a generation, and 1 in 2 students in Africa suffering learning losses due to the pandemic. Over 700 million people across the continent still have no access to the internet. And there is slow and fragile progress towards gender equality, which risks going in reverse. The climate crisis, biodiversity loss, and pollution are destroying lives and livelihoods at an unprecedented rate. And momentum towards an inclusive and sustainable recovery thwarted by inequalities in access to COVID-19 vaccines and access to finance. In fact, we had the health pandemic hit Africa, but even worse was the socioeconomic impact. Ongoing conflicts and insecurity are also serious obstacles. And now, just when we thought we had an opportunity to begin to recover better, the conflict in Ukraine is further destabilizing and exacerbating the global economy that means to recover well. Excellencies, in spite of all that, the 2030 Agenda and the 2063 Agenda and our national development plans, together with the most recent Secretary General's report on our common agenda, remain our best blueprints to successfully confront the challenges we face. And Dr. Songwe mentioned the opportunities that we have to build on what has started to be successes on our continent. This 8th session of the Africa Forum on Sustainable Development presents an important opportunity to focus our energy on implementation and to continue to chart an ambitious path forward. There is solid ground to build on. The fact that we can again meet in Kigali today is a testament to Africa and Rwanda's resilience and the leadership of His Excellency President Kagame and other leaders across the continent. Excellencies, I'd like to highlight 5 priorities that I believe could help inform our deliberations. First, we must end the acute phase of the pandemic and build resilience against the next outbreak. Through the COVAX facility, the African Union is on its way to securing over 500 million vaccine doses. But despite these tremendous efforts, high-income countries have administered 13 times more doses per person than low-income countries. And vaccinating 70% of the world by July this year still remains our primary objective. And we do have Rwanda to see as a best practice. So there is hope. We must also build stronger and more resilient health systems by investing in primary health care and health surveillance systems, as well as a greater production of vaccines, diagnostics, and treatments. The actions taken by the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team and national agencies are some of the best steps that have been taken in this regard. In all of this, we'd like to remember and build on the global legacy of Dr. Paul Farmer. His sudden death last month does leave a void in the global health community, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to honor his memory, and I know that it is indeed a personal loss to President Kagame and the people of Rwanda due to his special bond here and the phenomenal work that he's done in public health contribution to the country. I know from a personal interaction with him on the Friday before he passed, I spoke to him coming out of Haiti. He has a huge hospital there, asking for more of his advice, and how we were hoping to have the contribution of the continent to the recovery in Haiti. And he spoke about you, President Kagame. He said to me that he was expecting when I came this week that we would have coffee. But in the meantime, he had said to the president that he was hungry. And the president said, well, come and have dinner with me this weekend. Your generosity and your friendship, I know, meant so much to Dr. Paul Farmer. Second, we must scale up and speed up investments in the protection of people and ecosystems at the front line of climate crisis. The IPCC report on adaptation released just days ago in Nairobi is a damning indictment of failed climate leadership. Extreme weather is destroying crop yields, eroding food security, and overwhelming our infrastructure. Developed countries must urgently deliver on the commitments that have made since Paris, but also further in COP26 at Glasgow to double adaptation finance to at least $40 billion a year by 2025 or sooner. Regional and multilateral development banks have to scale up their renewable energy and resilient infrastructure portfolios, and they have to mobilize more private finance. At UNEA in Nairobi, I witnessed the resolve of member states and other stakeholders to tackle environmental issues and other challenges to global governance by embracing a more inclusive multilateralism in line with the vision outlined in our common agenda. I hope we can demonstrate similar resolve in support of the Egyptian presidency of the next climate conference, COP27, the Africa COP. Together with COP15 on desertification in Abidjan and COP15 on biodiversity, the UN Ocean Conference, and Stockholm Plus 50, we have many opportunities this year to build on a resilient future. Third, we must supercharge the just transitions in energy, in food systems, and digital connectivity. We need a just energy transition that allows Africa to access clean and affordable energy while protecting livelihoods. The Just Energy Transition Partnership that was launched at COP26 to support South Africa set a valuable precedent for international collaboration. We need sustainable and resilient food systems which guarantee access to healthy diets and nutrition for all, while trying to restore and protect our nature. The UN Food Systems Summit last September and the creation of food system hubs in Rome are essential steps aimed at supporting countries in this critical transformation. And here again, we see Rwanda take the lead. Agnes Kalibata was our champion who shaped the ambitions of that summit. And so we have high expectations of Rwanda also continuing to lead on the food systems transformations that we need. We also need affordable connectivity and digital skills to create more job opportunities for young people in Africa and around the world. The Internet Governance Forum in Addis Ababa later this year will be an important milestone in this regard. Fourth, we must recover the huge learning losses of the pandemic by advancing education and lifelong learning. Education is the bedrock of all successful economies. Today, however, it is under enormous strain. Rwanda and many other African countries have made great strides in education outcomes. But despite important achievements, conventional education systems everywhere are struggling to equip learners with the knowledge, the relevant skills and values that are needed to thrive in our rapidly changing world. In developing countries especially, the pandemic risks causing a generational catastrophe. And that is why the Secretary General is convening a summit on transforming education in September in New York. The summit will seek to renew our collective commitment to education as a preeminent public good and mobilize the action, the ambition, the solutions, and the solidarity that are needed to transform education. I count on African leaders and government to embrace the summit as a critical opportunity to project forward the education systems envisaged under Agenda 2063 and to be the thought leaders of that transformation. Fifth, we need to accelerate gender equality and economic transformation. Over 70% of the people across Africa, the majority of them women, continue to earn their livelihoods in the informal economy, which is an afterthought in economic strategies and metrics today. Robust and decent job creation must be matched by achievement of universal social protection. The Global Accelerator for Jobs and Social Protection, launched last September, is central to these efforts. It aims to create 400 million decent new jobs in the care, green and digital sectors and expand social protection to half of the global population by 2030. Achieving gender equality and SDG 5 requires ambitious action from all of us. Together, I hope we can implement the 5 transformative recommendations of the Secretary-General, namely, repealing all gender discriminatory laws, promoting gender parity in all spheres and at levels of decision-making, facilitating women's economic inclusion, and ensuring greater inclusion of the voices of younger women, and following through on an emergency plan, response plan to prevent and end violence against all women and girls. Excellencies, the fate of the Sustainable Development Goals will be decided in Africa. To succeed, Africa must have the financial resources to invest now in a better tomorrow. We are far from where we need to be. Debt to GDP ratios have risen to almost 70%. Today, 17 African countries are at risk of debt distress, and 4 are already in debt distress. The Secretary-General has appealed for a serious reform of the international financial architecture, which shamelessly favors rich and punishes the poor. The Economic Commission for Africa's Liquidity and Sustainability Facility is an important partnership with the private sector to increase liquidity for sustainable investments in Africa. But we also need to ensure that finance is invested in the real economy. Special drawing rights should be rechanneled to countries most in need and invested in universal social protection, as well as the green, digital, and healthcare economies. The efforts that have been made by African ministers of finance in partnership with the ECA, we hope will yield some fruit to this. The African Continental Free Trade Area can be a game changer for Africa's sustainable development ambitions, but we must have the resources and the investments. There are big returns to be had on the continent of Africa. The goal of $100 billion a year in climate finance must be met starting this year and quickly scaled up. Unless we remind everyone, this is not what we need for climate action. It is the handshake between those that have and those that don't have, those that have been the greater cause of climate and those that have taken the greater burden in ensuring that we will find the billions and the trillions to fund a green and blue economy. Crucially, countries in need must be able to access this money, and that is why we are pushing for urgent reforms on access and eligibility systems. Excellencies, together with the African Union, the repositioned UN development system is mobilizing to deliver expertise, convening power, skill sets, and knowledge. At last week's meeting of the Regional Collaborative Forum platform, we agreed on an ambitious work plan and concrete deliverables. We also committed to support further investments in better data, national data ecosystems as crucial tools to inform policy, investments, and programs, and to measure the progress towards the SDGs. The challenges ahead are significant, but together we can and we will succeed in building a better future for all Africans in Africa and beyond. The United Nations remains your steadfast partner at this pivotal moment and remains, as always, at your disposal. President Kagame, thank you so much for having us this day.